Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new video on the Future Programmer YouTube channel. Today, we're going to continue where we left off in part 1 of the White House News Analysis Project tutorial by performing some data analysis and visualization of the data that we collected last time. If you haven't watched part 1 of this tutorial, make sure to watch that first. Without further ado, let's get started. In the first part of this tutorial, you scraped the White House website and extracted useful data from its news page. Now that we have that data, let's go ahead and analyze it. If you remember, our web scraping program last time dumped the data that it collected in a CSV, a comma-separated values file, which stores data in rows and columns, essentially tables, similar to programs like Excel or Google Sheets. The Python package pandas allows us to use powerful data structures like DataFrame to easily manipulate and store data. And here's the command for installing pandas. So you want to copy this command, which can be found in the description of this video, and put it inside of your command prompt window like this, and pandas will be installed for you. Next up, we have data visualization and matplotlib. Data scientists often use graphs, charts, and plots to visualize big data sets. The Python package matplotlib is used for this exact purpose. So let's install this with the command pip install matplotlib. Once again, you want to open up command prompt and put this command in right here. Lastly, let's talk about wordcloud. A very elegant way to visualize textual data is wordclouds, images generated from words, and the Python package wordcloud can create such images for us. We can install this package using the command pip install wordcloud, which we want to put in here once again. And now you have all the packages that you need to get started with part 2 of this White House News Analysis project. Let's go ahead and take a look at the dataset that we created last time using our web scraping program here, which we stored inside of the data.csv file. We can see that our data is stored in a table with 5 columns. We have the index column, the title, type, issue, and date columns. We have a total of some 9,000 rows, which is definitely enough for a data visualization project. Let's open up a new Python file I called mine analyze.py, where we will be analyzing and visualizing this dataset. To start off, we can just import the packages that we'll need. We'll need the pandas package, the matplotlib.pyplot module, as well as the wordcloud package. Now let's read the CSV file into our Python program, which we can do using the readCSV function provided by pandas. So pd.readCSV is going to take one parameter for the data.csv file name, and this is going to give us a data frame object, which we will store inside of a variable called df. Printing out df, we should see a table printed out. We actually have a duplicate column for the index column. So we have one index column here and we have another here. And that's because we didn't specify that we already have an index column in the CSV file, so pandas added another one. To correct this, we can just add a new argument in the readCSV function call called index col. So index column is equal to 0. So now pandas would not add another column. And we can see we have the index column printed out once, and then we have the title column, the date column. Now you won't see the type and issue columns showing up in the output because it's truncated out, but by printing out df.columns in our list, you will see the type and issue columns right here. Now let's think about what are some interesting analysis that we can potentially make using this dataset. What are some interesting visualizations that we can create from this data? Well, you might be interested in the focus of the Trump administration, which can potentially be reflected by the White House news publication. Taking a look at our dataset once again, each row is going to have the data associated with one news article. We have the title of the news article, the type of the article, and then we have the issue of the article. This is a label for the articles, which is, what is the article about? In this case, it's law and justice. It can also be about veterans or foreign policy and so on. So we can group the articles by their issue label. And this way we can see how many articles are about law and justice, how many articles are about veterans, and so on. So let's use the df.groupby method. So df.groupby, we want to group by the issue column, and we want to count the number of titles in each group. And then let's just print this out. We'll see a table with two columns, the issue column, and we'll see that we have the different issue labels for the articles. And on the right side, we can see that we have 308 articles about budget and spending. We have 821 about economy and jobs, 112 about education, etc. So we can create, let's say we can create a pie chart for this. So instead of printing this out, we want to use the .plot method to create, so we want to create a pie chart. Kind is equal to pie. And then let's add a title for the chart. Let's call this Trump White House News Release by Issue. And let's just see what happens if I call plt.show. So .plot is going to create the chart using matplotlib.pyplot as a backend, even though it is part of the pandas package. And then matplotlib.pyplot.show is going to display that chart on my screen. We'll see a pie chart showing up on my screen. We have a title displayed up here, and then we can see, for instance, we have a lot of articles dealing with foreign policy. We have not as much articles dealing with energy and environment and education. We actually see the title label right here. So let's remove that, which we can do by adding in the ylabel argument, and let's pass in an empty string. Now we have the pie chart once again with the ylabel gone. What if we want to add a percentage for each of these pie pieces? So how many percent, how much of the articles are actually about foreign policy? We can use the autopct argument, and we will want to pass in a format string, which we can, let's just pass in %.1f. So we're going to create the percentages as floating point numbers with 1 decimal value. Let's also add in a % sign at the end by putting 2 % signs here. Now we see we have the percentages associated with each of these issues. So 20.3% of the articles are about foreign policy. We have, let's see, 9% are about economy and jobs. We have 5.9% about national security and defense, etc. Let's do the same thing for the types of the articles. So instead of issue here, we want to change this to type. And here we'll also want to change this to type. So we have a chart about the issues and a chart about the types. We can see the majority of articles are about our statements and releases. We have quite a lot of remarks, not as much executive orders, not as many news clips as well. These are great. What if we want to see, let's say, the trend of the different issues? So how many articles are in each issue every year? Has that changed? Well, we can create some sort of line plot for that. To start off, let's take a look at our data once again. In each article, we have the date on which it is published. So January 20th, 2021, etc. Let's say we want to see how many articles about law and justice were published in the year 2021. Well, we first want to create a column with the value 2021. So let's do that by first parsing this string into a Python datetime object. Let's import the datetime object from the datetime class from the datetime module. So from datetime, import datetime. This is the datetime class, which we can use here. We first want to parse this into a datetime though. So we want to use the toDatetime function of the pandas package, and we want to transform this column into datetime objects. And let's store this back into the df date column. And let's create another column only storing the year information. So we're grouping all the articles by the years, or at least we are enabling us to do that later. So df, let's call this year, is equal to pd, or not pd, it would be df date dot apply. So we're going to pass in a function that we want to apply to the entirety of the date column. So let's pass in a lambda function, which is going to take a parameter d, which is the values in this column. And we want to return a datetime object with year being d.year, month, let's just pass in 1, and day, let's also pass in 1. So now let's create a new data frame. Let's create a data frame called df year issue, which is going to be equal to df.group by, let's throw in year and issue. So this time we're grouping the data frame that we originally had by both the year published and the issue label of that article. And then we're gonna, let's take a look here. So we wanna, again, count the number of titles that belong to each group. And then let's transform this into a data frame. And then we want to create a pivot table. So df year issue dot pivot table. And we want to use values being title, index is going to be year, and columns is going to be issue. Let's just print this out. We'll see the pie charts showing up, and then here we have a pivot table showing up. So this is the header for the different issues. We see budget and spending, we see economy and jobs, and etc. And then here we have the year column. So these are the years. You see 2017 January 1, but it's actually just the year that we really care about. It's just nicer to graph this when we have the entire date information. So in 2017, there were 139 articles published about budget and spending. In 2018, we have 110 about budget and spending. So we can create a plot using this data. Let's remove the print statement and throw in the .plot method here. We can create either a line plot, or we can create, let's say we create a area plot. Let's throw in a title called Trump White House News Release by issue and year. Once again, we want to show this plot using plt.show. We see the pie charts, and then here we can see a area plot showing up. Let's say what is interesting in this chart. So we can see, for one, the budget and spending, as we would expect, it kind of decreased over time. And this brown shade right here, it's I believe it's healthcare. It actually went up really dramatically in 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we can see that reflected in the White House news publication. We can do the same thing for the type of the articles. So let's just change this to type. Let's change this to a new variable name as well. So these want to be type. And this, let's also change to type. Matter of fact, I'm going to comment these out so we don't see the pie charts shown every time we run this program. We actually see, okay, we have a key error. That's because I commented this out, which we don't want to do. So we see a new area plot created. So we have this area plot, this trending kind of chart created for the year. What if we want to do that for a month? It would be pretty similar. So instead of year, let's just call this month. And month is going to be equal to d.month. Day, let's keep it at 1. Let me comment this out. And we actually have something pretty similar as these two. So we can just duplicate this and uncomment that. So for all of these year here, I'm just going to mass select all of these and change this to month. So this 2, let's just make this an uppercase M, and we should be good to go. We can see here the rise in the number of articles about healthcare was even more pronounced. This is around March or February, March, I guess, of 2020. The number of healthcare related articles went up a lot. And you can also take a look at other trends in this chart. This is the same thing for the type. Lastly, let's create a word cloud for the titles. So each of these titles, they may contain some similar wording. So executive order, we can see shows up once here, shows up once here, shows up once here, etc. So we can create a word cloud for this. And let me show you how to do that. So we want to first extract a string containing all of the titles of all of the articles. And the pandas package for their data frames, we have the toList function. So toList method. So let's call this on the df title column. So df title.toList. This is going to give us a list of all of the titles in this column. But we don't want a list. We want a string. So we can just use the .join method. So let's join these elements in this list with spaces. So space.join, and then let's put this into a string. And let's store this inside of a variable called text and create a word cloud object. So we already have the word cloud package imported here. It has the word cloud class inside of it. So we can create a variable called cloud. It's equal to wordcloud.wordCloud. Notice how the W here and the C here are both uppercase because this is a class. And let's just create this object and call cloud.generate. We want to generate a word cloud with the text storing all of the news titles from our web scraping program. And let's use plt.imshow, so image show, to show the word cloud. And let's just show this. We will see we have a image showing up, which has pretty low resolution. We can't really see much right now. So to change that, when we create our word cloud, what we can do is we can pass in some parameters. So let's pass in width. I'm going to pass in 1920. Let's just pass in height of 1080. The word cloud is of higher resolution now, but it's not really easy to read. So let's change I'm going to change the background to another color. Let's say change it to white. You can keep this or you can change it to another color if you would so desire. So I'm going to make the background color argument equal to white. We have the kind of axes on the X and Y axes. So let's remove these with the plt.axis function. Let's change this to off. There, now we have a word cloud printed out on our screen. We can see that some of these words show up apparently more than others. So Donald J, J Trump, President Donald. Let's say here we have remarks, press secretary, vice president, President Trump. These are kind of the more common words in the news articles titles. So with our program now, I'm going to uncomment all of these. We have analyzed and visualized the datasets that we created from our web scraping program. But this is really just the start. You can create a lot of other charts for this dataset, or you can use the skills that you learned in this tutorial into other areas of data science. And that's it for the White House News Analysis Project tutorial on the Future Programmer YouTube channel. I hope that you learned a thing or two about web scraping and data science in these videos. If you found these videos to be helpful, please consider subscribing down below to support this channel. With that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in more programming tutorials. In the meanwhile, happy programming!